It's September 9th, 2021, the second summer of COVID, and it's time for Dr. Ron's annual yard and garden report. The first thing to report is that I lost my big Norway maple tree. There used to be a giant Norway maple tree here, and it got a disease after the drought early this summer where we had 98 degrees and 30-mile-an-hour winds for like 2 weeks. That pushed that old Norway maple over the edge. So I had to have the tree people come and take it out, which is very, very sad. But now we have new members of the yard family. I got 2 of these red twig dogwoods, just like I have on the side of the house. We'll look at those in a minute. And over here, instead of big trees, I got shrubs. Over here we have a lovely star magnolia, a Japanese type of magnolia that's going to get really nice pink flowers on it in the spring. So that's nice. There's a bonus to losing your big maple tree. So here's a lot of the patio plants I put out front because I had to move them when the tree people came. So there's not as many patio plants, but there's the big pot of basil I do every year. There's some Dusty Millers. I got a blown over marigold here, right? And I always like these purple alyssums. I got 2 purple alyssums as usual. My ex-wife gave me a chunk of this, which she calls pencil plant. It's a euphorbia. And she brought over a chunk, and I thought it would die for sure, but I stuck it in a pot, and by God, the thing is rooting. So that'll be an addition to the houseplant family. Here's a nice cayenne pepper. These beautiful, beautiful bright red cayenne peppers. I got a lot of those this year. These are the purple beans. The purple beans have lived up to heirloom purple bean reputation, and they've kicked out tons and tons and tons of beans. At this point, I'm kind of letting them go to seed. Since I have a lot of beans on the inside, I'm kind of looking for a seed bean. You just let the pod sit on the plant and let it dry up, and then I get next year's crop of seed out of there, right? So here are cherry tomatoes. Got lots of cherry tomatoes this year. The red variety here, and also some gold drop, little pear-shaped yellow ones. There's lots and lots of scarlet runner bean flowers. These are the ones that the hummingbirds like so much, right? This is also scarlet runner beans, and I got these birdhouse squashes. There's a birdhouse squash that has climbed a good 30 feet up into this pine tree, but it never gave me even one squash. They're climbers like that. Here's some seed pods for scarlet runner beans. We'll have lots of scarlet runner beans. They're good to eat, and you also have to save some to plant every year, right? The sunflowers are there, and I think these might be the tallest sunflowers I've ever grown. There's an even taller one out front, so we're looking at sunflowers here that are well over 10 feet tall. Nice crop of zinnias. Planted rainbow zinnias as usual, and I got the giant variety. So I got zinnias here that are a good 4 feet tall. Lots of pretty colors. There's a sedum in full bloom. A lot of times I do the garden tour earlier and we don't catch the sedums in bloom, but now the sedums are in full bloom. Any one of these sedums will have like 20 bees on it of various types, bumblebees and honeybees from the local people who keep the honeybees. There's a gazillion on there right now. Here's some tomatoes that are, here heading into mid-September. Tomatoes that are kind of done giving up fruit. These are red Thai peppers I grew this year. Now, I can eat the cayenne peppers that I just showed you, but these Thai peppers are too hot even for me to eat. So I string them up. I can put one of those Thai peppers in a chili, and it spices it up just perfect. Lots and lots of collard greens. There's my shadow. So when the time comes and the frost gets near, I'll have lots of collard greens to chop up and throw in the freezer because I love collard greens. My zucchinis, and these were yellow squashes. They did not do very well this year because of the drought early on. They have big leaves, and they have a really intensive water requirement. So the yellow squashes especially, they kicked out probably a dozen or so yellow squashes, maybe a couple dozen. And then they stopped producing because they died. It was just too hot and dry for them. I planted more yellow squashes in the hopes there was time to get them to go, but now it's cool at night and they're not growing very well. I still have zucchinis over here, but they're just not producing a lot of fruit. Lots of tomatillos. I got lots of tomatillos in the freezer already. I like to use tomatillos to make green chili. You get pork shoulder and you simmer it in tomatillo, and then you get sort of shredded pork in the tomatillo. Add garbanzo beans, and you got green chili. There's a hummingbird right there. There's a female hummingbird who is on the scarlet runner beans. We won't be able to see her in the little film here, but they're not afraid of you either. There she is. There she goes. They just love the scarlet runner beans. She's over there on the runner beans next to the storage shed there. I see the hummingbirds all the time this time of year when the scarlet runner beans are out. So next we have the side of the house. Here's some miscellaneous herbs. There's a rosemary up on the porch. That'll be coming in, and then I pick at it throughout the winter and try to keep it going for next spring. Parsley, they never do very well inside. There's a volunteer Japanese forget-me-not that came up out of the patio. This is catnip, of course. Catnip grows all over my yard, and I have 2 cats, so of course my cats enjoy catnip all summer into the fall. Excuse me. This is an elephant ear plant I put in the flower garden this year. I thought it would get a lot bigger, but it's just kicked out a very few leaves. Here's another sedum. And these are, this is what a red twig dogwood will turn into, will look like. So it's about 15 feet high, and it gets these white berries on it in the spring through the summer. And these berries are highly prized by all of the local birds. The robins just love them. There's always a catbird on these berries. And I get cedar waxwings who come through here. And the local turkeys who live in Audubon Park, sometimes they will come through the yard and then they will absolutely clean out the rest of the berries. Here's a gold drop tomato. And it's just about done. It's getting scraggly. Now up there is a gourd. You can see that gourd there. Right there. That's one of 2 gourds. I had planted 4 of these gourd plants, these birdhouse gourd plants. And of the 4 plants that I planted, I only have 2 gourds. The one out front is easier to see. These are the Japanese noodle beans, and I just harvested those, so there's not a lot of beans to look at. More tomatoes on the side of the house. Dogwoods, I have red twig, yellow twig, red twig, yellow twig. The twigs actually look really, really gorgeous in the winter when the leaves are all gone, sticking up out of the snow. You get these bright red twigs and bright yellow twigs. There's some Japanese noodle beans. The plants are very prolific and produce lots and lots of beans, but as I said, I just got done harvesting these a couple of days ago, so there's not a lot of beans to look at. A few. I've been trying to I harvest the beans because the birds, see that hole there? The birds, the chickadees, can hang on the bean, and they can actually hammer into the bean and get the bean out of there. So I got to get the beans into the house so that I can have the beans for eating. They're like black-eyed peas, and also for replanting next year. Lots of milkweed. I let the milkweed grow for the monarchs here, and also way in the back behind the vegetable garden. These are my snapdragons. I guess tiger lilies, people call them, right? Lilies are all gone, but the plants are here still. They're very nice. Here's my collection of creatures that I keep on the front step. The collection of creatures is growing. And here's my little gnome who's bleached. All the paint is bleached off of him. There's the pumpkin that stays out year-round because we're big fans of Halloween around here. And here's my pots. I got 2 of these big pots in the front. There's Dusty Millers. And then, I forget the name of those flowers that I get every year, right? And this is Kevin. Kevin is one of the front step creatures. I get them at the state fair when they're bigger like this. My pumpkins did not do very well. These are warty barfkin pumpkins, ornamental pumpkins, and they're itty bitty. You can see by the size of my hand. And that's also a function of the drought. Pumpkins are like the squashes. They're like the zucchinis and the yellow squashes where they have really, really big leaves, so they lose a lot of water. And the drought early on really, really killed them. I'm keeping these these red flowers, and I don't know what kind those are either. I saw them at the greenhouse earlier this spring, and I thought I'd get them, and they really brighten up the step nice, right? Here's armadillo, another one of my front step creatures, and here's my owl, adding to the creature collection on the front step. Right. Here's Donkey. He's part of the creature collection. He looks just like the donkey on Shrek. Right. And then this is Turkey that I got at the steel menagerie thing in the hippodrome at the state fair. This turkey's super funny. We got the turkeys over in Autobahn Park, and a lone male turkey came around the corner of the house one day, and I saw him out there, and he was displaying at this steel turkey. He had his tail out, and he had his wings out, and he was waving back and forth at my steel turkey, kind of threatening it. That same turkey actually came back to do the same thing while I was on my hands and knees here, planting beans. He came around the corner, and my neighbor across the street had to tell me, there's a turkey sneaking up on you. So this is more purple beans, where I used to have warty barfkins, but the pumpkins died because of the heat. Lots of marigolds out front, marigolds in pots. These are the pots that are usually out back, but I had to move them somewhere. I had to move them up front because the tree people cut down my big Norway maple. Here's a nice red bayberry. I have to cover that up so that the rabbits don't eat it, because the rabbits will eat it down to nothing this winter, right? Purple beans, my shrubs in the front, more flowers, more zinnias. I got a lilac on either side. I don't know what this bush is in the middle. Those are my house shrubs. There's another very, very small pumpkin, warty barfkin. You can see the warts on it if you look close. And again, they were stunted because of the drought this year. Now here's another one of those gourds. I planted another gourd plant here by my smoke tree. You know, my beautiful smoke tree with the beautiful red leaves. And I planted a gourd at its base. And this gourd is actually really nice. It has a nice shape to make into a birdhouse. And I'm hoping before the first frost it might add about another quarter bit of size to it, so it makes a nice birdhouse. I have scarlet runner beans planted by the smoke tree, so there's runner bean pods coming up, and lots of marigolds around the base of the smoke tree. Yellow marigolds in the front and orange marigolds in the back. So now we got to go down to the boulevard. Look at the boulevard plants, and then we're through. The lawn was in rough shape earlier this year, but it has started to rain. I never water the lawn, and I watered the lawn a few times just so I wouldn't end up with dead patches. And now it's started to rain, and the lawn is nice and greened up. Looks very nice. Here's a big sedum. There's about a gazillion bees on it right now. And in this patch, now there's a planter here, and the planter used to have an ash tree in it, and they took these ugly, scraggly male Fraxinus ash trees out of here. And after they ground the stump out, I just use it for a planter now, so I planted things in here. Here's a King Daddy sunflower. This sunflower is about a foot higher than the tallest one in the back, and it's just now getting a flower on top of it. The past couple years I've been planting sunflowers in the front and the planters here, and as people walk by walking their dogs and walking their kids and stuff, they really like to see the gigantic plants. This is the one warty barfkin plant that actually did pretty good. I put it in the planter there with the sunflowers, and it took off out of the confines of the planter, and it's about 15 feet long, and it's got a couple of nice pumpkins on it. If you look really close in the grass, you can see a pumpkin there. And then there's another one over here. There's the other pumpkin. They haven't turned orange yet, so I'm hoping they get a little bigger. So those would be the two nice warty barfkins that I get. I never would have thought they would be in the planter instead of in the garden. Here's the other planter with a sunflower in full regalia. Just gorgeous, huh? Whoop. That's absolutely gorgeous. Not so tall though. I'm 5'8", and I'm even taller than that sunflower. This sunflower here is about the same height I am, right? And then there's another tomatillo. There's two tomatillos in the back, and I put a tomatillo out here, and I actually got a lot of fruit off of this early. And before the first frost, I'm going to get a lot of other nice fruit. So I'll have enough tomatillos for 2 batches of green chili, I hope. The boulevard trees, that's the hackberry tree that the city planted maybe 10 years ago, doing very well. And over here we have the ginkgo. I asked the arborist, the Minneapolis arborist, for a ginkgo, and he was nice enough to give me a ginkgo. When they pulled up with the trees to plant them, I yelled across the street, "Can I get a ginkgo?" And he reluctantly and sort of grumpily said to me, "Yes, you can have a ginkgo." As I was on his case over getting one. Here are the hostas and some marigolds on either side of my front steps. One more planter with dusty millers and more marigolds. There's the giant hosta. At the beginning of the year, I gave half of this to Jeff and Jeff across the street, and it's none the worse for wear, right? We put a shovel right in the middle of it and hacked it directly in half. The half he planted across the street looks great. This one is as big as it would be otherwise. Well, that's not quite true. It would be probably wider across, but none the worse for wear nonetheless, because hostas can take a lot of abuse. I didn't show this. This is I've done this 3 times now, and I've never showed my son. I got this from the rummage guy who sells these iron things down on the corner of 33rd and Central Avenue here. And I screwed that sun right in the middle of the front of my house. And the kids love it. I don't care what anybody else thinks. I love having that sun there. Hanging baskets. That basket there, I've never been able to keep hanging baskets so long, so keep them well watered, and I'm doing well with those at least this year, even through the drought, although they're getting lots and lots of water. Here's an ugly lawn ornament. I think I'm the only one who likes it. And this is my bird bath. We've been trying to keep the bird bath full because water's been hard to come by, although it has started raining lately. And there's always something going on in the bird bath. Right? There's always hornets, there's always birds. You can see some bird poo in there because the birds really enjoy it. And that concludes Dr. Ron's yard and garden tour for summer 2021, the second summer of COVID.